Welcome to Bill Faeth Unfiltered, where we give you actionable episodes without the bullshit. Here is your host, Bill Faeth.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Bill Faeth, and this is Bill Faeth Unfiltered. Today, we're going to be talking about how to master down payment assistance. And this takes a lot of preparation, but before we dive in, I want to introduce you to one of my new co-hosts, Christopher Wharton. What's up, Chris?
How's it going, guys?
So Chris is the man behind the camera. I'm bringing him out front. We're going to be talking about stuff, and he'll be asking me questions as we go through this. But I kind of want to just start with when you're thinking about purchasing your next piece of real estate. Could be land, could be a condo, a super property, midterm, long-term, short-term. It really doesn't fucking matter. What does matter is that you are planning at least 90 days in advance. And here's the reason, Chris, is let's say you're going to purchase your first short-term rental, right? And let's just assume you don't have enough cash and I'm going to loan you 50 grand. If Chris goes and puts a condo under contract, let's say you're going to buy down in the Regency where I'm buying in Panama City Beach, right? And then he's under contract and then I wire transfer you 50K, give you a check, whatever it is. The lender's going to see that and say, hey, Chris, where'd you get that money from? What are you going to tell him, Chris?
Bill?
Yeah, got it from me. You can't hide it, right? They're going to look at the wire transfer. They're going to look at whatever. And they're going to say, well, you don't have enough money to buy this condo, so we're not going to qualify you to be able to loan. Now, if Chris would have planned 90 days in advance and I transfer that to him like 91 days, or really it could be up to like 100, you need to think about literally 3 bank statements, right? So we're recording this in March. So you need to think about February, you need to think about January, and you need to think about December. So literally that would have had to transfer happen on the November date range to show up on the November statement, because most banks are going to look at your seasoned funds of at least 90 days. Some may go back 6 months, right? But some are 2 months. Most are going to be 90 days. That's number one. The second thing that you need to think about, and is your credit score. Chris, do you know what your credit score is or what your range is?
I have to look at Credit Karma, but yeah, I'm pretty solid in that.
So what do you range?
I average somewhere between 750 to 780.
Okay, so you're right about the same as me. A lot of people might think, well, Bill, you've got all this real estate, you're wealthy, whatever, you got to be like 850. I don't. Bria hovers, but and believe it or not, Bria's the debtor in this family. And I'm the one with all the real estate, but I'm usually between like 757 to 800, right? What I want to make sure that never happens is that I drop below 750, because if I go below 750, then I'm not going to get a premium rate from most banks. It's not just about being like above 650 to where you're bankable, but here's where that 90 days comes in. Again, you can start preparing 90 days in advance. Once again, if you go under contract and then start trying to repair your credit score, you're fucked. It's too late at that point, right? So you need to think at least 90 days in advance. You need to think about some of the things that I do. I keep no credit card debt longer than a week. I typically pay off my credit cards at least 2 to 3 times a week, weekly at the worst. We were in Montana for 12 days with 2 couples retreats, and I did not pay off my credit card. I just was too busy snowboarding, skiing, Bria, 2 couples retreats, all that type of stuff. And I literally had like $19,000 in debt between my Amex, which is my primary card that I use. I use an Amex Platinum Business, and then also my personal Visa card, right? That's my United card to cram in my United points. And I made the payment. Luckily, I made the payment. I did make a payment while we were there. I think it was on the 9th. We got there on the 7th. It was either the 10th or the 11th is my reporting day. So that's the next tip. You've got to know what your reporting day is for each of your credit cards. It is not your statement at the end of the month, right? So I made that payment on the 9th. I think it was the 11th is reporting day for the Amex. And I think out of that, like 18 grand, 11 or 12,000 was it on the Amex? If that would have hit, I probably would have dropped close to 15 to 20 points. And that could have, and I'm under contract right now. Credit's already been ran. I'm selling a property, actually that Montana property that we were just in, under contract this morning. And I'm going to repurchase, most likely, what we're going to see tomorrow, take Bria to see, and for you to see, my first purchase actually in the greater Middle Tennessee area as well. So I got to make sure that I'm protecting my credit. A much longer term play, Chris, who owns your car?
I do.
You do. Awesome. Does your wife or mother or girlfriend or anybody else name on your car?
No.
Will you ever, if you buy another car after you're married, who's going to own that car?
I will.
And then so you'll own the car, then your wife would actually be the buyer and you will be the debtor, correct? So does that make sense to everybody? You understand what I'm throwing down with that, right? So in my world, Bria's the debtor and I'm the buyer. Too many of you on your primary mortgage for your primary residence have both your names on it. So you're both getting hit with a debt. If you only put one spouse's name on that, only one spouse takes the debt. The beautiful thing is if you file your tax returns jointly, then you both get access to the total amount of income. So if husband makes 100 G's and wife makes 200 grand, literally if you file separately, husband only has $100,000 in credit, wife only has $100,000 in credit for her income. If you file jointly, you both get $300,000. Now, if wife has the car note and the boat note and the Sea-Doo note and the side-by-side notes, and let's say that totals $200,000 or $150,000, $200,000, and the husband does not, then that does not show up on the husband's debt-to-income ratio. This is why you need to think in advance of how you're buying, and you always need to have managing your credit on your mind. Chris, do you have anything to add? 'Cause I know you've dealt with some actual credit issues in the past, and you've got all that cleaned up now. A lot of us do when we're younger, there's no question. But like you still also, your student loans are gone now, correct? I paid those off for you, right?
Yep.
So that other thing is student loans affect. So you went through like a 4-year degree in 18 months or something crazy like that at Full Sail, and you paid for it yourself. That's why you had student debt. If you were a doctor, a physician, an ortho, whatever, and you have $100,000, $200,000, $600,000 in student loan debt, that's another thing that needs to be managed because they're looking at that minimum payment, right? And if you go to a commercial bank, they're looking at that overall credit worthiness. So what did you do personally when you had some credit score issues to be able to increase your credit score?
It started very, very small for me. So I had credit card history that wasn't very good, and I had late payments on my student loans for when I worked at a church, basically.
Right. When you weren't making any money.
I wasn't making any money, so that was the way I kind of got by for the moment. But
about 40 grand a year doesn't go very far.
Especially not now. But it started very, very slow. So I got a credit card I could get, which wasn't the best card, wasn't a big name card, but it was something so I could start slowly building my credit. Spending money, because you have to spend money, pay it off, like you said, and when we started this thing, that you pay it off, you know when the reporting is, which is different from when you actually have to pay it. Understand that, paying it off constantly, but continuing to spend money, pay it off, spend money, pay it off, to eventually was able to then be able to get another credit card, which is actually a Chase Sapphire Preferred. And then same thing with that one, spend money, pay it off, spend money, pay it off, which then led to the next one. Not that I need multiple credit cards, but it's just that's the process.
So how many do you have now?
5.
5 credit cards. So I'm trying to think. I think I've got an Amex Platinum Personal. I've got an Amex Platinum Business. I've got my United Chase Visa card. And those are the only 3 that I use. I think Bria's got 2, I might have like roughly 5. There's like 2 or 3 others that I don't use. So just credit tip for you guys, when you're out there, like those 2 or 3 that I don't use, never cancel them. Pay them off, leave it at 0. Pay the $90 if it's a free, annual fee or whatever. But if you remove that, that's going to impact your credit history. So it's like I've had a debit card, not that it's a credit card, with Bank of America, and I still have one Bank of America account, still have a safety deposit box with them, because I've literally been a member since I think it's 1984 or 1985, right? So if I had a credit card for that long, that would increase the history. So pro tip for those of you that are parents out there, Gentry, my oldest daughter, who's 19, has had her own Amex Platinum tied to my card since she was, I think, 14 or 15 years old. Oakley, my youngest, who's 15, has had one since she's been like 10 or 11. So they both have Visas, or maybe it's MasterCard. The Chase MasterCard, the United card that I have, they both have Amex Platinums. So when I took Gentry down to Chase in Brentwood when she was getting ready to go to Belmont last summer. And we opened up an account, and she put her own money because she's been on payroll. That's a whole nother tax advantage for kids. And they ran her credit score. She had an 850 perfect credit score because I make every payment. I've never had a late payment. And she already had like 4, 5, 6 years of credit history. So if you have kids, put them on your credit card and use it. You can spend on their credit card. You don't have to give it to them. But now Gentry has her own from Chase. I think it's a Chase Sapphire as well. A student card. It had a $1,500 a month limit. And I said, you have to max that out every month. So here's the interesting thing. She started Belmont in August. So what's that? September, October, November, December. And then in January, when we got back from skiing after 5 months, we walked into Chase, met with the same guy, said, hey, we want to see if can you do a no credit pull increase. She was able to double to 3,000 after 5 months on that singular credit card. He's like, come in every 90 days. So that's going to be in May. We'll go back in and do a no credit pull credit increase. So that's one thing that I do. Like I have a Southwest Rewards Visa. Remember when we used to fly Southwest all the time? Yeah, when Chris started, we were flying Southwest on discount tickets. Now he fucking flies first class on United. And a lot of that's because of the point hacking that we do. That's a whole nother thing. But if you're a point hacker, you apply that same mentality to your credit, right? So that Southwest Visa I've had since we moved here 24 years ago. And I still use it a little bit, but I continue to pay that off to zero every single month. That started when I moved here as a $5,000 credit card. I now have like 80,000, and that's no credit pulls. A lot of people will just go in and do the credit pull. You got to call the credit company to do the credit pull. And as Chris said, you got to spend on a credit card. That's where Dave Ramsey kind of fucks everything up. Oh, do debit cards as cash or whatever. Use your credit card as cash. That's why I pay off literally 2 to 3 times a week. So instead of not getting points, not getting any advantages to it, and you don't build credit on your debit card, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my credit has gone crazy. Last year at the SDR Wealth Conference, I made 3 $99,999 payments on my Amex Platinum and then paid it off immediately, right? That's 300,000 points that I got that I wouldn't have had. That's literally almost a free coach ticket to Europe or any place in the world. So that's your credit card hacks. That's how you should prepare for your buying. Don't just borrow money from, anybody out there inside the 90 days, especially if you're doing a Fannie and Freddie loan. They're going to see that from a season standpoint. Take care of your credit, open accounts, pay off your credit cards, and then you should be ready to buy your next property. Thanks for joining me and now Chris on Bill Faeth Unfiltered.